Hello everyone, my name is Mrs. Anthony and I teach 5th grade at Pass Road Elementary, and today we are going to be talking about the impact that us humans have on the earth. Now we're specifically going to talk about waste and the use of plastic, because I know that personally that's one of my biggest flaws in terms of impacting the environment is how much plastic I use. So this is a very serious issue that hopefully we can find some solutions to today. So we are going to focus on two standards today. The first standard says that students will demonstrate an understanding of the effects of human interaction with Earth and how Earth's natural resources can be protected and conserved. And the second standard that we're going to focus on is pretty similar. It says that we're going to collect and organize scientific ideas that individuals and communities can use to conserve Earth's natural resources and systems. So our goal today is to understand the impact that humans have on the environment and identify ways to combat the negative effects that are occurring. Our essential question that we want to keep in mind as we go is, what can we do to reduce the negative impact that we are having on the environment? So what is human impact and how is it affecting our environment? Scientists have been studying how humans impact the environment for many, many years. The choices we make every day can lead to negative changes in the ecosystems around us. Things like pollution, deforestation, and overharvesting the Earth's natural resources are triggering events that lead to global warming and species extinction. Without more careful consideration of our actions and formation of new Earth-healthy habits, our planet is heading for a future that is not happy for anyone. Luckily, you and me, we both, have the power to help change this path. So I hope you are up for the challenge. I certainly am, and I am super excited to find out some ways that we can help to conserve Earth's natural resources and make a better environment. So we are going to watch the following video that basically explains the whole life cycle of a plastic bottle, because as I said before, I want to specifically focus on plastic use because I know that it's an area that I could use some improvement on. So we're going to watch this video and then we're going to go through and answer a few questions and have a good discussion.
This is the story of 3 plastic bottles, empty and discarded. Their journeys are about to diverge, with outcomes that impact nothing less than the fate of the planet. But they weren't always this way. To understand where these bottles end up, we must first explore their origins. The heroes of our story were conceived in this oil refinery. The plastic in their bodies was formed by chemically bonding oil and gas molecules together to make monomers. In turn, these monomers were bonded into long polymer chains to make plastic, in the form of millions of pellets. Those were melted at manufacturing plants and reformed in molds to create the resilient material that makes up the triplets' bodies. Machines filled the bottles with sweet, bubbly liquid, and they were then wrapped, shipped, bought, opened, consumed, and unceremoniously discarded. And now here they lie, poised at the edge of the unknown. Bottle 1, like hundreds of millions of tons of his plastic brethren, ends up in a landfill. This huge dump expands each day as more trash comes in and continues to take up space. As plastics sit there being compressed amongst layers of other junk, rainwater flows through the waste and absorbs the water-soluble compounds it contains. And some of those are highly toxic. Together, they create a harmful stew called leachate, which can move into groundwater, soil, and streams, poisoning ecosystems and harming wildlife. It can take bottle 1 an agonizing 1,000 years to decompose. Bottle 2's journey is stranger, but unfortunately no happier. He floats on a trickle that reaches a stream that flows into a river, and a river that reaches the ocean. After months lost at sea, he's slowly drawn into a massive vortex where trash accumulates, a place known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Here, the ocean's currents have trapped millions of pieces of plastic debris. This is one of 5 plastic-filled gyres in the world's seas, places where the pollutants turn the water into a cloudy plastic soup. Some animals, like seabirds, get entangled in the mess. They and others mistake the brightly colored plastic bits for food. Plastic makes them feel full when they're not, so they starve to death and pass the toxins from the plastic up the food chain. For example, it's eaten by lanternfish. The lanternfish are eaten by squid. The squid are eaten by tuna. And the tuna are eaten by us. And most plastics don't biodegrade, which means they're destined to break down into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics, which might rotate in the sea eternally. But Bottle 3 is spared the cruel purgatories of his brothers. A truck brings him to a plant where he and his companions are squeezed flat and compressed into a block. Okay, this sounds pretty bad too, but hang in there. It gets better. The blocks are shredded into tiny pieces, which are washed and melted so they become the raw materials that can be used again. As if by magic, Bottle 3 is now ready to be reborn as something completely new. For this bit of plastic with such humble origins, suddenly, the sky is the limit.
All right, so now that we've watched that video and we were able to see exactly how plastic bottles start and where they could end up, let's look at these questions. So number 1 says, describe how plastic bottles are formed. Well, a simple summarization of what was said in the video: oil and plastic molecules are bonded together and then melted down to form plastic bottles. Number 2 says, what is a garbage patch? Before I answer that question, I would just like to say, how yucky were those garbage patches in the middle of the ocean? It was just bad. So a garbage patch is an area in the ocean where huge amounts of trash accumulate. Again, very, very yucky. The third question says, when an organism in the ocean consumes plastic, how does it impact other organisms? So as we saw in the video, sometimes sea creatures and different organisms, they can get confused and mistake plastic and other objects for food. And when they eat it and they consume that plastic, it makes them think that they're full, even though they actually aren't. So then the animals can end up starving to death. And when they pass away, they give off these toxins that travel up the food chain and harm the other organisms. So, for example, the turtle that we saw in the video, it gives off these toxins after eating plastic and passing away, and whatever consumes the turtle, now that organism is taking in those toxins. And we even saw that these toxins can lead all the way up to us. Luckily for me, I don't eat seafood, but I'm sure a lot of you do. And if you do, you can see that we can also be affected by all of these toxins and all of this waste that's going into the ocean. And the final question asks us, what happens when you recycle a plastic bottle? So as we saw, when we recycle plastic bottles, they're squeezed down and compressed into a block with other plastic. And then that plastic is melted down back to the raw materials, and finally is reused to make another product. So rather than creating more plastic and wasting more plastic, the same plastic is reused and used to create something else, which I think is pretty cool. The next slide says, imagine you are the second bottle from the video. Write a journal entry describing your life cycle. So, if I were, and this is my journal entry, if I were the second bottle from the video, I might feel a brief sense of relief that I did not suffer the same fate as the first water bottle, because we see that first water bottle was pretty unlucky. However, I would soon be disappointed to know that after being produced in a harsh, cold factory, I am now being disregarded and thrown away like trash. I have to travel down a cold, lonely river, polluting the environment as I go. This makes me very sad. So, as we saw from the first water bottle and the second water bottle, the fate that it suffered was not very good. It didn't get recycled and it ended up as waste, which we know pollutes the environment, and we don't want that. So, if I were that second water bottle, I'd feel pretty sad. The next slide says to think about what you learned and come up with a plan to reduce the amount of plastic waste or pollution you create. You can even enlist the help of your family if they are willing to help. Over the next week, you will be carrying out your plan and journaling your efforts daily. So, my plan. The first question asks, what can I do to reduce the plastic waste or pollution I create? Well, I can use reusable bags, bottles, and other products that don't involve plastic. The next question says, what is my goal for this project? Well, my goal is to decrease the negative impact that my actions are having on the environment, because nobody wants to hurt the environment, but sometimes it just happens as we go on in our daily lives and we use things that are convenient, we can be harmful to the environment. So my goal is to decrease the harm that I'm doing. The third question says, how can I achieve this goal? Well, I can achieve this goal by reducing my use of plastic whenever possible and recycling it whenever I do use it. Because sometimes we will use plastic in life. Sometimes you just have to. But when you do, you can recycle that plastic. And the final question says, what materials or help will I need to carry out this project? So to start me off, I won't need much. I'll start off with a recycling bin to make sure I'm recycling my trash, and just some good reusable materials that I can use in exchange for plastic. So, my weekly plan. This is what I'm going to do every day to hopefully reduce my negative impact on the environment and to decrease my use of plastic. On day one, I'm going to recycle any plastic that I've used on this day and any previously used plastic that I can find. On day two, I'm going to purchase a water pitcher with a filter so that I can decrease the amount of plastic water bottles that I use. So instead of getting a bottle of water, I can just use my pitcher to pour myself a glass. On day three, I'm going to start to inform others. I can share the video like the one that we watch and just information that I find about the harmful effects that plastic use can have. On day four, I'm going to begin to organize a local cleanup so that we can avoid things like our trash going into that garbage patch that we saw and into the river like we saw with that second bottle. We don't want that. So we want to start to clean up our local area. On day five, I'm going to get a recycling bin so that I can make sure I can easily recycle in the future. Day six, I'm going to start to use reusable bags and products that eliminate plastic. And finally, on day seven, I'm going to create a larger plan for educating others and taking action. Because this is something that we want to continue beyond this lesson and beyond this week. We want to do this forever. We want to make sure that we are doing our very best to make sure we are in a good environment and that we're not harming the earth. So again, once I've started to learn more things and I'm sharing my knowledge with others and I'm doing things in my daily life, I want to create a bigger plan to continue this. So let's do a little bit of reflecting. Before we started this project, what would you usually do with plastic bottles? Well, to be honest with you all, I would usually throw them in the trash can and I wouldn't think twice about the effects. Like I said earlier, no one wants to hurt the environment, but sometimes we don't think about it. We don't stop and take the time to see what it is that we're actually doing and the effects that it has. Question number 2 says, what surprising information did you learn and how did it change how you think about plastic? It was very surprising to learn just how much plastic is used and how harmful it is. It has changed how I think about plastic by showing me that it is not simply something that we should use and throw away without thinking. We must be mindful and only use plastic when necessary. Question 3 says, do you think that one person can make a difference in the outcome of the planet? Why or why not? I say yes. One person can make a difference in the outcome of the planet because we can begin on a small local scale with ourselves, and then we can educate others by spreading awareness, and then we can form an even larger group that spreads across multiple cities, states, and even countries. So yes, one person can change the outcome because it may start with one, but then we will spread awareness about what's going on. And finally, now that you have completed this project, do you think you will continue to practice better habits? Why or why not? Yes, I will be much more mindful of my plastic usage and how it affects the environment. So, I hope you all learned a lot today. I will surely be a lot more mindful, and hopefully, we can begin to create a plan for a better environment. Again, it only takes one person to start great change, and I know that you can do it. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all learned a great bit in today's lesson. It was very, very important. And as always, I will see you guys next time. Bye.